What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how to fix a nasty cracked bumper like this with nothing but a drill and zip ties. And you'll see here that this is not going to be a permanent fix, but rather something to get you by. Although in my case, the vehicle isn't worth getting a new bumper for. So what I'm going to do today is do a very good fix that will eliminate the bumper breaking down any further. Now here is my Nissan 350Z that had a similar problem. And you can see that the bumper split, and this was able to hold it on and allow me to keep using this bumper. And people stereotype about Japanese cars and zip ties, and it's 100% correct. Now, what had allegedly happened with this vehicle was it was hit by a deer, although I do see the fog light was severely dented in on the other side, and I'm going to take a whack at fixing that as well. So what you'll learn today is exactly how you can mend a bumper together no matter how bad it is, assuming you have all the pieces of plastic. If you have that, you can work with this. Fun little fact, while I was taking the bumper off, I also discovered there was a tiny little wasp nest right inside. Now, I would highly recommend removing the bumper to do this. In my case, however, being an older vehicle, there was a bolt so rusted that I couldn't put a socket on it. So I tried to put a vice grips on it, and that didn't even go well. Now, after the bumper was off, I was able to twist it a little bit more, and I just ended up snapping the bolt. Surprise, surprise. And because there was a seized up bolt on there, it did make it quite challenging to remove the bumper. So what had ended up happening was the washer on there was so rusted that it actually deteriorated in my hand. And I was able to just yank this off. I used the screwdriver, as you can see here, to try and pry it up. Every little thing I could. As you can see, I even busted my knuckle a little bit just trying to get this off. And yeah, that's right, even a simple job like removing the bumper, and I still busted my knuckle. Working on cars, I tell ya. Alright, so with the bumper finally off, we can start doing the fun stuff. So I drilled 4 holes here, actually, when I could have probably gotten away with just doing 2. And so what I did after all 4 holes were done is I took a zip tie, and then what we start to do is we run the zip tie from underneath, over the top, and back down. Now normally I like to do a crisscross pattern, but because of the awkward little loop that the end of the bumper had, I decided I would just attach the bumper together with that loop before I went on doing any actual stitch patterns. But watch this though, this is pretty hilarious. I took a Sharpie and thought I could mark where I was going to drill my holes on a black bumper with a black Sharpie. It didn't work out too well. With the bumper firmly being held together, I could start doing my stitch pattern. And what you'll do for this is you'll take the zip tie from underneath, run it through a hole, and then run it to the diagonal hole. And then you'll tighten it down. Now after that, you'll do the same thing on the other side with another zip tie, running it through and tightening it down. This will give it a really nice stitch. Now let's watch that again. What I do is I run it underneath, run it over the top to the diagonal hole, tighten it down, and then do the same thing for the other side. Now if you keep doing this pattern, it ends up looking fairly nice, so keep that in mind when you do it. Now, it's pretty easy to do when the bumper is flat, but when you get a little curve in it like this, let me show you what you can do. So, although the drill is in the way, what you can do is you can take one, put it on top of there, and then underneath where the divot is, I go in the bottom, and then we're going to do the same thing, just a set over. Now, because of the way we've set up the holes, what will actually happen when you do this is the zip tie will flow much better with the curve of the bumper. Now, this isn't going to be some perfect job. We are still zip tying the bumper together after all, but this does make it look a tiny bit better if somebody wants to get up close and personal. This was one of the trickiest spots of the bumper. You can see it's actually broke into 3 different sections, and I had to place my holes very strategically if I wanted this to hold together well at all. So as you can see, the bottom piece closest to the bottom of the screen has 2 holes in it, and then the other 2 corners have 1 hole. So what I decided to do was to first run the loop from the bottom left corner hole up to the top hole, and then kind of guide the pieces together a little bit and tighten it down. And if you look closely at the zip tie, you can even see it being guided through the holes, tightening up a little bit, and then when it starts to get towards the end of the line, you can see I try and guide the pieces together, just make sure that they all mesh up nicely. And then this is where doing a stitch pattern has some real benefits. So it's pulling itself together from every angle, and then once I run this final piece in there, all the corners are pulled very tightly together and you have a very strong bond. So it's kind of something that looks good and functions very well, especially in this instance. And here's what our finished bumper looks like. Now what you could do is you can tighten up the stitches, meaning you could add twice as many as I did, although this makes it nice and strong. One thing you'll notice, one of the tabs here, I didn't do the stitching pattern, I just did the looping pattern. And I think this is just going to hold on the bumper to that piece fine. At the fog light, I think it turned out really well. We got a really nice swirl going. That's kind of how it cracked. And you'll notice that there's a piece zipping it together at the end. And overall, this one I think turned out the best, just because of how smooth all the zipping looks. The other side is very aggressive because it cracked in all different places. But this side, it's kind of got a nice little appealing drift stitch to it. And then once everything was all zipped up, I decided I wanted to paint that little piece that didn't have any plastic behind it. So I got some universal black paint, and then I just started painting in the areas that were white to black. This made it blend in so much better than when it was just white. It's definitely not as noticeable, especially when you look at it. The area behind it is going to be dark, so it almost looks like there is some bumper there, and you really don't even notice it until you get right up next to it. And then I would just recommend being careful with it. I got a little bit over aggressive with the glue, put too much on, and then when I go to wipe it, oh no, I dripped more onto the bumper when I tried to wipe it off. Good job, Justin. Just a little trick if this happens to you, WD-40 is mainly mineral spirit, and that breaks down paint that's drying. So what I did is I obviously sprayed it with some WD-40, took a shop rag, and then I started wiping it down. And of course I didn't want this in the driveway that I was renting, so I decided to quickly wipe that up as well. And I sprayed a hefty amount of WD-40 on the bumper and the driveway so I could try and clean it all up. There was a slight bit of paint that didn't end up getting wiped away, and it's kind of hard to see in the video, but it's definitely there. Although the good thing is this is the bottom of the bumper, so it's really not noticeable at all. And like I said before, I zip tied the bumper together, so it's not like I really care about it. And then this is what the back of the bumper looks like when all the zip ties are in there. I couldn't find my tool, but I did have a straight razor. Please don't do this. This was a terrible idea. I didn't cut myself, luckily, but I took the straight razor with the scraper tool, and I was able to actually cut off all the zip ties. Also, when this was hit with the deer, they knocked one of the fog lights loose, the connection broke. So, obviously, we can fix that with a zip tie. I just lined it up, ran the drill straight through the edge of the fog light, and then looped the zip tie through there, and it actually holds it on incredibly sturdy. I'm not worried about this thing going anywhere. If you have absolutely hated everything I've done to this bumper so far to fix it, you might want to shut the video off right now, because how I hold up these pieces of foam is kind of hysterical. So I didn't have any glue, but I did have gasket maker. As you can see, the gasket maker is kind of old. The shape of the nozzle was at the end of the tube, and I tried the best I could to break it open with the screw that I had holding the nozzle shut, but it wasn't budging. Although I did get a little bit to come out, and I was able to put it on the foam. Well, sadly it didn't hold, so I just decided I was going to zip tie the foam piece up so I didn't have to deal with it anymore. As you can see right here, I just held the foam piece up exactly where I thought it was supposed to be, eyeballed it, drilled right through the foam, did another hole right next to it so I can loop it all right back up. Then I got my zip tie, right? I got my zip tie, ran it through the foam, ran it through the bumper, and then I ran it back down into the foam. Now you got to be careful with the foam, okay? Because if you tighten it too much with the zip tie, then you're just going to damage the foam. And you guys must remember that stuck bolt from earlier. Well, I found a solution to hold that piece right up. So this is the before and after, with and without the zip ties. So you guys can make your judgment if this is something that you want to do. Otherwise, I'm going to show you what the rest of the vehicle looks like. Now check it out. From a distance, this thing doesn't look bad at all. And then when you get up close, you know, you can see the zip ties in it. But I don't think it's a terrible look. It's a very functioning thing that I did to the vehicle. So although this isn't a permanent fix for the bumper to make it look brand new, this will, however, suffice in holding it together. You can kind of see the zip tie up top that I used to hold the foam piece in. Don't really recommend that you zip tie the foam piece in. I'd recommend you just buy some brand new gasket maker, or better yet, glue. But overall, that is how you do it. That is how you drift stitch like you do at the drift games. Now, if you found this video helpful at all, or even just kind of funny, I would really appreciate it if you liked the vehicle. The next thing I'm going to do is a video on that truck right next to it. It's actually LS swapped, so we can have some fun with that. Otherwise, I hope you guys would subscribe so you can see more, and you guys have a great day, and drift stitch the world.